Hey everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. In today's episode of I'm Blue, Dabba Dee, Dabba Die. I've painted quite a few Space Marines over the years and collected myself a little rainbow army. I'm actually yet to paint up one of the Golden Boys using Speedpaints, and with Leviathan's box set arrival, I think it's time well and truly to get one of those under the belt. So first I needed to work out which paint to use for these blue Blood Angels, and I tested around a load of blues, mixing them together, all sorts of things, when I finally decided on Beowulf Blue as my chosen hero. So let's go through all of my painting process in the following video, but I'm going to also give out some sort of mega tips. I've painted a lot of flat panels over the years using speed paints, and I've learned a bunch of little tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you, so pay attention to those little gems. Anyway, let's go and paint some miniatures. First things first, I got the little fella built and primed in Army Painter's matte white primer. Sometimes I like to mix it up a little bit with slightly off-white primers, but the blue I'm going to be using is pretty dark, so I needed the brightest base to begin with. With the Termi ready to roll, it's time to bring out the headline act, Beowulf Blue. What is a Beowulf? Why is it blue? I hear you ask. It's a great question. I'm going to be applying this colour carefully, purposely, and meticulously. You guys know me by now. I like my paint jobs like I like my coffee. Well, I don't really drink coffee. I drink tea, so yeah. I know I'm going fast and hard, but it doesn't have to be that way. Just because it's speed paint doesn't mean it won't still be fast, even if you go slow. Sometimes you have to turn right to go left. With that in mind, one big tip for painting these Marines, and any flat surface really, is to pay attention to each piece, each section and each panel. Paint one of them at a time in its fullness before going on to the next. Here you're watching me paint the front of his boot entirely, then the side of his boot, before moving on to the back of his boot. Paint the whole shin in one go before moving on to the next area to block it in. This is really important to improve the look of the finished paint job. It is also the best way to gain my second big tip for painting these. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, go back over the same part of the miniature. This is especially important for speed paint too, and more so if you have absolutely no medium in it like I do here. This paint dries much quicker than previously. A second coat of this stuff, even when it still looks kind of wet, is going to make it patchy. If you do miss a little bit, most of the time you're actually going to be better off fixing it after the first coat dries, with a tiny bit at a time and building up little layers. One way to avoid having to go over the same area is my third big tip. I use tons of paint at a time. I put it on thick and top up my brush a lot. This does a couple of things. It means you miss less bits, but it also means the paint stays wet for longer. I like to move it around while it's thick and way less streaky. These miniatures are also great for letting the excess then flow and get into the recesses, and it makes the recesses look absolutely sick. Also, on a personal note, I like the darker pools that formed on the flat panels towards the bottom. It's just something I like, and if you like them too, putting it on thick is going to help you achieve that. And gravity do the work. The thicker the paint is, the more the gravity can pull it towards the bottom. That's enough chit chat about the blue. Let's have a look after I finished all the armor. It's looking pretty nice for a few minutes work, with the most noticeable blotchy part being here on the shin.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, go back over the same part of the miniature.
I really wanted to make sure you saw this, as it was a good demonstration of why I've given you that tip. Do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, another tip is coming up later on for how you can sort out that little mishap. For the next part, we're going to add some Grim Black to our Termi. We'll apply this for his belt, because why not? But we'll also apply it to all of the soft rubber joints around his limbs. The biggest tip I have for you here, and you can see me doing it, is stock up a lot of paint on your brush and letting the runny paint do the work for me. I'm just like putting a dollop in the middle and letting it run into the recesses. It saves me getting black bits on any bits I don't want to be black by keeping my brush away from the edges. I guess my second tip for this bit is just make sure you pay careful attention to his buttocks. Bow chicka wow wow. Next part, next colour. For his purity seals, I chose the Watch It Paint It designed colour through Morgue. I really wanted to use this colour because we helped create it, but equally Howling Sand or even Pallid Bone will have you and these seals covered. No big tips for you, it's easy, just use a small brush. Finishing off these seals with the wax bit using Murder Scene. The only real tip for you here is not to use too much paint on the brush here, simply because you don't want to get that red on any of the paint that you've already done. Less is more here, and well, it's not more, it's just being careful. Oh! Another tip is if you do love the colour like I do, make sure you check out our top 10 speed paint videos because this was one of them, along with 9 you might not guess. Right, gold's back on the menu. If you've been living under a rock and missed that the Army Painter have the world's first single coat metallics, well, here you are. I'm going to use HOPLITE gold here and live my best life, not having to switch back to normal acrylic paint to do the insignia on his chest and on his gun, as well as the bullets in his gun, which I should mention I really considered using the bronze metallic for the bullets, but I just wanted to keep the colour choices more concise to help speed up the paint job. Less colours equal less shaking and less pouring, which equals less time in total. Another watch it, paint it designed speed paint is up next, Blinding Light. I hadn't even considered when we developed this colour that it would help me finally paint up a real Ultramarine, but here we are and it arrived just in time. Using this colour for his head and the little symbols on his shoulders and his knee. Nothing really special to say here other than hot dog. This colour works like a dream. It all still looks white instead of grey like Holy White would have done, and it took seconds to do so. Gone are the days of me hating painting white. We're back to metallic speed paints again here, and this is Broadsword Silver. A few little bits to cover with this colour. There's a couple of ducks, pipes, metal things coming out of the arms, both sides. The majority of his gun is also going to be silver, and his little cutesy face, look how cute that is, also wants to be covered in this colour. The biggest tip here I'm going to give applies to all of the metallic speed paints. You really can't shake these ones enough. Shake and shake again. Shake as long as you can manage and shake it right. This is the most important bit. Shake it right up until the second you want to pour them out to start painting. These metallics do settle fast, even in the bottle, even after 30 seconds or something, you'll notice the difference. They start separating. Unfortunately, the same thing applies once they're on the palette. They're going to try and separate. Paint fast, and personally I occasionally stir it with either another brush or the back of my brush. You can see on your palette the colour starts pulling apart after just seconds, so give it another stir, mix it back in. If you've been using those metallics and you're actually not satisfied with them, you're finding them quite flat, try this tip. It's massively going to improve the contrast for you, but having said that, these metallics are really only kind of two-tone, so while there is contrast, it's not the same as the normal colours. Please do bear that in mind, but you basically get really easy, smooth metallic paint to apply that comes with a little bit of free shading. Hey, that's it. With that, we're done, guys. Well, I say that, but, you know, off camera, I went and did a really quick base job for the little guy, painted in some colours in his eyes. This one I chose poppy red, but it's going to be a bit of a personal preference for you all, and yeah, I finally applied decals. One thing to note there, and it is my final big tip for painting up flat-ass Ultramarines, but I chose where I put the decals based on how bad the panels look. Remember that messy shin from earlier? Bang! And the dirt is gone. Well, almost. It looks heaps better, at least. The shoulders are some of the hardest panels to paint, and luckily decals often help you there, but yeah, any of the random things, all these other bits, you can try and apply on the worst looking parts. There we have it, a very fast battle ready Terminator. I hope this tutorial helps you, and the big tips you can take forward. Use them on all sorts of flat ass miniatures. And guys, if you have any more tips, be sure to leave them in the comments below so others can learn from you and I can add them to my own repertoire. Together, we can get my Leviathan box set complete. Thanks for watching it. Now go and paint it.